Pupulsuhan natin ang mga opinyon at pagtindig ng mga Pilipino patungkol sa mga isyong panlipunan.
Tayo'y tumindig, makialam, kumilos. Ito ang Courage On, a community show produced by Rappler's civic engagement arm, Move PH.
That's right, we spotlight the pressing issues here in the Philippines and the ways we can take action on them together. Ako po si Jules Giang, good afternoon, ang Head of Community po ng Rappler.
I'm Aaron Cristobal, singer, actress, and improviser. Welcome to episode 11 of Courage On.
Welcome, Aaron, to the show. Thank you so much for being here and thank you so much for co-hosting with us today. At tama yung nabanggit mo, Aaron, no? Ngayon, tapos na nga ang halalan. Muling nagbabalik itong Courage On Show kasi nitong campaign season, ang naging title ng show natin ay Atin ang Pilipinas. Dito hinimay natin yung iba't ibang election agenda na nilatag ng ating mga partners. So, Courage On is back and you are our first guest host. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jules, and I'm really happy to be co-hosting today.
It's our honor and pleasure kasi napapanood ka lang namin sa TikTok pero ngayon nandito ka na, 'di ba? Thank you. Sana ma-feature mo rin yung show na to sa TikTok channel mo. Ayun.
Go lang.
Okay, kaya naman sa ating mga viewers, ipagpatuloy natin ang diskusyon online. Mag-post gamit ang #CourageOn para i-share ang inyong mga takeaways at insights. Sa mga nasa Zoom naman, sa ating mga live audience dito sa Zoom room natin, pwede nyo rin po i-chat dito sa ating Zoom para makita yan ng ating mga attendees.
Yes, and this Courage On episode is presented by Rappler and UNESCO and co-hosted by Caritas Philippines, Dakila, Faith Initiative, and Institute for Solidarity of Asia. Para sa mga online viewers naman natin, aside from Zoom, we are also streaming this show live on Rappler's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter accounts. Pati na rin sa mga Facebook pages ng mga partners natin, such as Amateur Media Association of Philippine Scouts, Concerned Artists of the Philippines, Council for People's Development and Governance, Dakila, I Defend, K4 Kilos na para sa kalusugan, kabuhayan at karapatan, Kalikasan, Karapatan, Lilak, National Council of Churches in the Philippines, Now You Know, and Rise Up Philippines.
Alright, maraming salamat po muli sa UNESCO at sa lahat ng ating mga partners. Ayun nga, so Arin, tapos na nga ang eleksyon, may bago na tayong mga nahalal na pinuno, pero kung babalikan natin itong nakaraang kampanya, sobrang kitang-kita natin na ang lakas-lakas ng volunteerism. Napansin mo rin ba to, Arin, sa mga networks mo?
Yes, nakita ko sa social media feed ko, nakita ko sa mga kaibigan ko, nakita ko sa nanay ko, at nakita ko na rin sa sarili ko. Kaya ngayon, Jules, sa episode na to, ngayon tapos na yung eleksyon, paano nga ba magiging aktibong mamamayan ang mga Pilipino?
Tama, dahil ang pagiging aktibong Pilipino ay hindi lamang dapat nagsisimula o nagtatapos tuwing halalan. Dapat tuloy-tuloy yung pag-volunteer natin kasi ito yung esensya ng isang demokrasya. Kung kayong mga online viewers, syempre tatanungin natin, paano nyo ba planong maging aktibong mamamayan kahit pagkatapos ng eleksyon? So ito yung pag-uusapan natin, Arin.
Yes, exactly. At sa community show natin ngayon, pag-uusapan natin yan. Jules, meron tayong mga panelists na makakatulong magbigay liwanag tungkol dito.
That's right, Arin. Kaya naman napakapalad po natin dahil makakasama natin ang ilang mga individual na aktibo sa pag-mobilize ng kanilang mga komunidad.
Exactly. We have with us today Dexter Yang, Executive Director of GoodGov PH. We also have Miggy Lapid, Executive Director 2KK Tulong sa Kapwa Kapatid Foundation. And last but not least, Marvin Lopez, President, Pasita Organic Garden. So welcome to Courage On.
Hello, Dexter, Miggy, and Marvin. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, reminder lang din na pwede po kayong mag-send ng inyong mga questions sa ating mga live viewers here. While the conversation is ongoing, just comment them or send them to the Q&A tab here on Zoom. All right, so wag na natin patagalin pa. Simulan natin ang talakayan tungkol sa pag-exercise ng ating democratic rights at ang tungkulin na maging aktibong mamamayan. So para sa lahat to, para sa inyong tatlo, maraming mga pananaw na lalong umangat nga itong volunteerismo nitong nakaraang taon. Simula sa pagputok ng Taal noong 2020, di ba? Sinimulan natin 2020, pumutok yung Taal. Tapos yung taunan natin na malalakas na mga bagyo, yung pandemic response, at lalo na nitong nakaraang eleksyon. Sa tingin nyo ba, natural ba sa kultura natin ang ganitong pagiging matulungin o pagiging aktibo? And why do you think this is the case? Sino gusto magsimula? Si ano na lang. Sige, Miggy, go ahead.
Siguro sa akin, no, ang mga Pilipino, natural naman, matulungin. No? Mahilig tumulong. Tapos, Syempre, bakit nagvo-volunteer, no? Bakit mahilig, diba, tumulong ang Pinoy? Dahil merong pangangailangan, no? So parang there's a recognition of a need. So kung may tragedy or calamity man yan, need to help, no? Those that are affected. So ganun, no?
Thanks, Miggy. Si Marvin.
Hello, Marvin from San Pedro. Yung sa akin naman, opinion ko lang, natural sa ating mga Pilipino yung pag-volunteer, embedded na sa sistema natin yan, tulad ng bayanihan. Yung pagtulong na lang sa magulang, pag matanda na, pag-volunteer magpaaral ng anak, pagbata pa, pagbigay ng pagkain sa kapitbahay. Nakita natin ito nung pandemic, yung pantry, community pantry, tapos yung mga plantita, yung mga gardening, dun dumami yung namin, yung volunteer kasi may food shortage, may kakulangan sa pagkain kaya daming gusto magtanim, mag-produce ng kanyang pagkain. Tapos ngayon, hanggang ngayon may member kami na mag-organize ng community garden sa Pampanga dahil nga sa nababalitang food shortage.
Yun, Ari, no? So yung food security talaga yung naging issue for the past 2 years.
Correct. Oo.
Nag-ano ka rin ba? Naging plantita ka rin ba? Dahil sa pandemic?
Yes, pero namatay lahat by summer. Parang nung lumabas na yung araw tas uminit, medyo nag-ano na siya. Bye.
Okay na raw, parang paano rin naman, hindi na masyado lockdown. So sumakto lang sila. Si Dex naman, ikaw, anong tingin mo, Dexter?
Yan. Actually, tama yung sinabi ni Miggy, no, tsaka ni Marvin. I think, no, very well ingrained na siya sa kultura natin, pati sa sistema na kinakalakihan natin. No? Sa kultura, kasi tayo mga Pilipino, puro tayo makapamilya, di ba? Parang as the basic unit of our society, no, yung pamilya talaga, doon tayo nabibuild na kailangan tulungan nga natin yung isa't isa. And ang maganda dito, no, embedded din sa sistema natin yung ganong pagkakapamilya. No? Makikita natin dito lalabas yung konsepto ng pakikipagkapwa na yung ine-extend natin na tulong, hindi sila iba sa atin, no? Parang kapwa sila, 'di ba? Makikita natin 'yan sa school kung saan grade school pa lang tayo, tinuturuan na tayo kung paano tumulong, 'di ba? So, kinakalakihan natin 'yan from the moment na pinanganak tayo sa Pilipinas hanggang sa gumraduate tayo. Kasama na talaga, no, sa kultura at sistema natin yung pagtulong, no? At doon lalabas yung volunteerism.
Ang ganda. So parang sinasabi mo na mababait lang talaga tayo. So my question is to Miggy, no? Why do you think there is volunteerism, lalo na dito sa Pilipinas na imbis na tumutok sa sariling interes, bakit tayo tumutulong?
So dito sa Pilipinas, actually marami. No? We have a lot of volunteer groups and basically ginagawa natin to kasi we want to offer something. No? We want to offer either our resources or our time, and we don't, we do it without being paid. No, we do it without being forced, no, to do it. We just want it because yung purpose din natin is aligned to what we want to do and who we want to help. So maraming advocacies out there, no? Kaming tatlo, we represent different advocacies as well. Kami ni Dexter, Marvin, no? Kami sa 2KK, it's more on education and youth. So marami yan, no? And combined, no? Hopefully we can help, the whole country.
Thanks, Miggy. Si Dexter naman, no? So himayin natin kasi laging binabanggit kailangan maging active citizen tayo. Ano ba talaga yung tungkulin ng isang Pilipino, ng isang mamamayan pagkatapos ng isang halalan? Kasi yun nga, kanina sa intro namin ni Ari nabanggit namin, sobrang dami talaga nag-volunteer itong campaign season. But naturally, 'di ba, may mga nagpo-pause muna kasi napagod, tapos parang unti-unti silang bumabalik. But from your end, lalo na coming from an organization, no, that pushes for good governance, ano ba yung ideal na gawain ng isang Pilipino even after an election?
So, syempre, unang-una, no, kailangan natin malaman, no, kailangan makialam tayo sa mga nangyayari sa ating lipunan. And you can do that, no, by simply reading the newspaper or yung mga tweets online. No? Pero syempre, hindi yung fake news. Yung nakikinig tayo sa balita na alam natin kung ano yung nangyayari, kunyari sa local government natin, sa city natin, no? Yung mismong awareness is the first step, no, before we can actually act. Pero syempre nakita natin nagbago na yung perspective at yung paradigm ng volunteerism, no? Kasi dati, no, bago mag-election, 'di ba? Lahat tayo nagvo-volunteer kasi meron tayong gustong suportahan na kandidato. Ngayon naman, pagkatapos ng halalan at bilang nasa isang demokrasya tayo, magbabago na yung gampanin natin. No, lahat ng inelect natin, whether sinuportahan natin sila o hindi, no, responsibilidad natin to hold them accountable. What does that mean? Kailangan, since tayo yung pumili sa kanila, kailangan siguraduhin natin na ginagawa nila yung trabaho nila. Diba? At paano natin magagawa yun? Magagawa natin yun kapag alam natin yung nangyayari. Pangalawa, nagiging bahagi tayo, no? Nakikibahagi tayo sa mga sistema na meron tayo sa government. So for example, no, by participating, no, sa mga nangyayari, by lobbying, joining organized groups, lobbying for policies and the like, no. Pero hindi naman lahat ng mga tao o mamamayan merong oras o kapasidad para gawin 'yon. No, kaya mahalaga na magawa mo 'yon in your own ways, no. So by paying your taxes, no, yung mga basic responsibilities ng mamamayan, no, kailangan ginagawa din natin. Pero syempre, we have to do more than that, no. We have to talk to the politicians that we elected as well. So kahit hindi tayo organisadong grupo, may kakayahan tayo, no, nakausapin sila at to demand more from them.
Okay. Ayun, nakuha naman natin mensahe ni Dexter, no? So, kailangan mag-engage daw tayo arin doon sa mga politicians. Kasi remember, nung campaign, sila yung lumalapit sa atin. So, dapat ituloy-tuloy yun. Hindi porket nanalo na, mapuputol na yung communication line. So, dapat continuous daw siya.
Correct, correct. At para naman kay Marvin, iba't iba ang reaction ng mga kababayan natin pagkatapos ng halalan. May mga nagdiwang, may mga nawalan din ng gana, at may tinatawag na volunteers and donors fatigue. So, paano ba tayo makakaraos mula sa sitwasyon na to? Alam kong pati ako medyo, nawalan ng gana eh.
Hello. Yung isang pwede natin gawin na nakuha ko to dun sa kaibigan ko na philosopher, tayo siya na pusong Pilipino. Ang sabi niya sa akin, no, ang sabi niya sa akin, no, be inspired. Maghanap daw tayo ng tao, ideas para ma-inspire. Nangyari naman yun ng election, maraming na-inspire kay Lenin, maraming na-inspire kay Robin Padilla o kay Manny Pacquiao. Kaya sila na-volunteer. Tapos we have to champion a cause. Maghanap tayo ng cause na i-support natin at i-defend natin. Tapos, take active part in the community. Maging aktibo tayo sa community natin. Kahit halimbawa, talo yung sinusuportan ng kandidato, tuloy-tuloy pa rin. Tulad dun sa grupo namin, syempre, iba-iba rin kaming binoto, pero tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung members ng group namin na magtanim. Kasi nga, yung inaano nga namin, iba-ibang ang mga tao na volunteer kasi yung iba hindi nagko-conform sa norms ng society. Hindi kaya ayun nakita ko sa mga volunteers namin, meron na ang volunteers namin mga plant-based, mga vegan, meron mindset about the environment. Gusto nila ayaw nila makita yung lupa na idle lang, kaya tataniman natin, gustong kumain ng healthy foods. Kaya nagtatanim, gustong masolve yung food shortage, kaya sila nagvo-volunteer. So, hindi dahil talo yung kinampihan natin o nanalo, tuloy pa rin kami. So, tulad nga sabi ni Dexter, lapitan natin yung mga nanalong public servant daw na sinasabi nila. Ginawa namin yung last Monday, lumapit kami dun sa isa dito sa San Pedro about bike lane, kasi isa yung sa pinaglalaban namin. Medyo negative ang niya sa bike lane. Kaya
bakit daw?
Wala daw disiplina mga taga San Pedro, kaya mahirap daw gawin dito.
Ako, walang disiplina yung mga bumoto sa kanya. Baka kailangan.
Oo nga eh.
Ang malungkot, kasi siya yung head ng environment dito sa San Pedro. Pero mukhang mapapalagi ako sa opisina niya para yung bike lane. Kasi kami mga volunteer, ginagamit namin bisikleta for commute, pan-deliver ng gulay, pagpunta sa garden. So, kailangan talaga namin ng bike lane dito sa San Pedro.
Lalo na't napakamahal rin ng gasolina ngayon, di ba? So talagang okay na alternative yan. So sana makinig si politician, no? At least nabuksan nyo na yung diskusyon.
Correct.
Public servant daw siya.
Oo, tama. At yung gusto ko na sinabi mo, parang ang daming nagvo-volunteer ngayon dahil sa recent campaign, nakita natin na meron palang pwedeng puntahan. Kasi maraming gustong tumulong, hindi lang nila alam kung paano. So ngayon, alam na nila. So nabuksan din yung
Correct.
opportunity para sa kanila.
And speaking of spaces, Arin, no, maganda yung sinabi mong punto kasi nung election, very clear na may gusto mo ipanalo yung kandidato mo. Pero ngayon, may mga nanalo na, you have 3 and 6 years, 'di ba, na maglilingkod yung mga public servants. So ano ba yung magiging focus ng mga volunteers natin? So siguro on this point, ang pag-usapan naman natin, ano ba yung mga hamon o yung mga challenges na kinakaharap ng civil society, ng mga volunteers natin? Arin, may question kang alam ko.
Oo, so ano yung mga challenges natin? This is for everyone, no? Ano yung mga challenges natin that we're seeing in implementing civic initiatives and efforts here in the Philippines? Ano yung mga challenges? Parang marami. Hindi ko alam.
Siguro ako naman, para sa lahat to, no? I think COVID is still a challenge. It may mahirapan pa rin, no? Mahirapan pa rin kami to do face-to-face sessions. And of course, in terms of impact, talagang mas impactful kapag face-to-face rather than virtual setup. No? So yun yung una. And then of course, being an NGO, no, or foundation kami, no, of course resources. Hindi only, no, hindi only ang funds namin. So we have to find sources to get that, or donors. So yun yung hinahanap namin patuloy, no, every year yan para tumuloy din yung mga gawain namin. No, and siguro lastly for me, empowerment, hopefully, no, from the government, such that they don't hinder our mission, and hopefully they help, no, they help us. So yun yung mga yun talaga hinahanap. And of course, hopefully hindi sila makahinder, but no, we'll see, no. Hopefully, we hope for the best.
Sana mag-complement yung government.
Yun yung
Sana
best.
alam mo, dapat mag-improv sila para may collaboration.
Oo nga eh.
Sabihan
Ano ba,
kasi-
sige ma'am, pag-usapan natin, ano ba yung mga
Hello,
skills
government?
ng improv? Gawin natin yan. Okay. Ayan, thank you, Miggy. Si ano naman, si Dex. Challenges.
Ayan, for me, lalo na sa mga civil society organizations na dikit, no, yung mga programa nila kailangan dumikit sa local government or sa national government. Yung recent elections, parang magba-back to zero tayo eh. Ito, na-experience namin to, parang yung mga nakatrabaho namin before, it's either hindi na sila na-elect or tapos na yung term nila. So parang we have to build relationships again, you know, with the new politicians, with new government officials. The problem here is maraming mga civil society organizations, no, we made a stand during the elections. So in a way, parang may mga kalaban ka na eh just because of the elections, di ba? And lahat yan, marami dyan nagtatampo pa rin hanggang ngayon na bakit hindi nyo sila sinuportahan? Why weren't you vocal about this? Tapos ngayon, parang lalapit kayo sa amin. Diba? May mga ganun pa rin kasi na traditional politicians, and that will be a huge roadblock for many civil society organizations. And siguro, just to share our experience, no, kapag youth organization ka kasi, mas madali ka i-set aside. No, kasi people will think na mga bata naman kayo, 'di ba? Parang hindi pa kayo in that level para to really engage us and so on. So parang may double barrier tayo lalo na sa mga kabataan. So, and I think that's a huge challenge. And another thing is yung siguro yung kahirapan, no, for us to demand accountability. We can say no, now we can mobilize, we can knock on the doors. But then again, if hindi sila nakikinig, no, saan tayo tatakbo para mapakinig natin sila? And I think that's something that we have to address as part of the civil society sector. No, paano natin paitingin yung mga institution natin that will hold our public officials accountable?
Thanks, Dexter. Si Marvin naman, anong challenges so far sa community ninyo?
Marami. Isang challenges kasi kami mga volunteers dito, active citizen kami kasi ma-activist din kami. Hindi naman masamang maging activist kasi ang activist ay isang may taong active na may vision. Iano mo lang yung vision mo. Tapos sabi nga nung kaibigan nating si June, hindi naman masamang magtanong at maging isang aktivista. Tulad last year niyan, nung tumawag sa amin yung head ng DA dito sa city na pinapatanong daw ng chief of police yung kung ano yung grupos, yung number. Siyempre, nauso nun yung yung parang red tagging nauso na. Ang ginawa ko, tinanong ko dun sa head ng DA namin na, ano yung number nung chief police, tatawagan na, invite namin sa group para magkakakilanlan. Tapos mula na nagkaroon na kami ng pagsasama, pag may tree planting o kung may cleanup kami, tinatawagan na namin yung PNP dito, nagkasama naman. Pero yun yung red tagging, isa sa mga challenges yun nung tapos isa sa challenges na nakikita ko yung mga volunteers ni Lenny, isa ako doon, kay Lenny ako. Nung natalo na wala, tumigil na rin. Marami lang siguro mga keyboard warriors, hindi natin dapat itigil yun. Suportahan natin yung government, public servant natin ngayon, at saka yung angat buhay sana. Di ba? Hindi natin pwedeng itigil lang to, yung basta-basta yung pag-volunteer. Kasi lifestyle dapat ang pag-volunteer natin, lifestyle. Dapat passionate tayo dun sa mga ginagawa natin.
Correct. Correct.
Ayan, so
Salamat, Marvin.
tuloy dapat, Aren, no? Ayan,
Oo.
magandang segue yung sinabi ni Marvin, Aren, sa next question. Kasi one parang very clear challenge, no, itong dissent and activism. So this is probably my question, no, to Dex, and Miggy, you could also chime in. Kasi kapag pinag-uusapan natin dissent and activism, parang misconstrued agad siya na kapag critical ka, yung pananaw mo sa pamahalaan, sa mga programa nito, kalaban ka agad ng estado. So dito pumapasok ngayon nabanggit na yun nga, may red tagging among others. So Dexter and Miggy, ano ba yung impact nitong fear, no, because of red tagging? Ano yung impact nito sa mga programs and efforts natin on the ground so far from your observation?
Siguro let me share one of our experiences just last year, no. So one of the things that we started last year was we tried to expand, no, to mga regional chapters. No, we tried to experiment on having volunteers mobilized on their own. Kasi the good governance advocacy, kailangan bit-bit mo yan kahit nasan ka. Tapos locally contextualized dapat siya. Now imagine, no, a simple program where you want to raise funds, no, and then raise awareness about current issues. No, they see it as red tagging. They see it as parang communism pala. So nare-red tag yung mga volunteers natin. And umabot siya sa point that they had to shut down their program, their activity kasi natakot talaga yung mga bata. No, and when that happens, no, it doesn't have just a short-term impact. They become afraid of trying to do something in the long term na parang ayaw na nilang tumulong ayaw na nila mag-volunteer kasi parang tumutulong na nga sila pero kinakalaban pa rin sila, and first there's a threat against their life, diba? And that doesn't just end there. Parang a lot of young people, they get disillusioned about our democratic system na parang they become disempowered, nawawala sa kanila yung kapangyarihan ng mamamayan. In other countries, for example, dissent is something that they celebrate. Kapag ina-exercise mo yung kapangyarihan mo, yung boses mo, pag pinapalakas mo yung boses mo, they celebrate that because that's your constitutional right, that's your democratic right. But in here, baliktad tayo. So we have to rebuild that culture where dissent is okay and dissent is progressive, it's productive, diba? And we can only do that if we continue raising that same awareness to people. Kasi not everyone thinks the same way because we can be a very conservative country, no? Na kapag sinabi ng tatay mo, ng nanay mo, susunod ka agad. And that's how people see government. They see government as a form of family structure, di ba? Na kapag yung inelect mo, yun yung parang magulang mo, di ba? So kailangan makinig ka lang. So we have to try to rebuild that culture of dissent and citizen.
Okay. Thank you, Dex. Miggy,
Yes.
meron ka bang ano?
Yes, no. So to build up na lang, no, from what Dexter said, no. Of course, dissent is okay, no, walang problema doon. Actually for us, we empower our scholars, no, since we have scholars in 2KK, na to speak their mind, no. Especially, no, we want them to focus syempre on the factual matters, no. So meron nga kaming pinupush din, no, with PH the Raptor, no, to promote this, the fact checking, no, to battle disinformation, 'di ba, to battle fake news. So yun isa sa mga gusto namin talaga empower not only our communities but hopefully the more youth in the Philippines.
Thank you for that. And actually, I'd like to read a comment in our Zoom chat Ana Santos says, for us human rights defenders and volunteers, isang malaking usapin din yung red tagging. Many are afraid na mag-step up and mag-all out ng support dahil sa takot nilang malabel as detractors or worse, labeled as terrorists just because they're supporting activist organizations and their advocacy. So this was being said as Marvin was giving his answer earlier, talking about na siya rin, di ba, na natatakot ma-red tag. So baka ikaw rin, Marvin, you have something to say regarding this.
Oo, siguro kasi as ang mga nakuha ko na rin to, kung gusto mong maging successful ang isang revolution, hindi madugong revolution ta, hindi yung revolution na alam na iba, magtanim ka ng gulay. Kasi maraming revolutionists, kukontrahin nila yung system na nilalabanan nila, pero andun pa sila sa system. Umaasa sila sa food system na ano. Kung gusto mo talagang baguhin ng sistema, magsimula sa sarili mo. Produce your own food. Sabi nga nung gangsta gardener ni Ron Finley, sabi, growing your own food is like printing your own money. So, maging sustainable. Wag ganong umasa sa system na kinakalaban mo. Magtanim. Yun lang ang magandang answer dun eh. Hindi yung iba kasi dinadaan nila sa gulo o ano. Magtanim na lang tayo mas pa. Green revolution.
Right. And Arin, kitang-kita natin yung red tagging kasi, 'di ba? Lalo na sa social media, talamak na talamak 'yan. Tapos pinapalagana pa iba't ibang mga disinformation. Arin, pag-usapan natin yung disinformation. Ano bang question mo sa ating mga guests?
Oo, this is for Miggy and Marvin. Isa pang hamon ay yung sinabi nga, disinformation or yung tinatawag natin ng fake news. Ang disinformation ay may intensyon na baluktutin ang katotohanan. At nangyari ito, ang nangyayari tuloy, nagiging challenge sa atin magkaroon ng shared reality or shared truth. Kasi lagi nilang sinasabi, sa panahon ng lola ko, 'di ba? Parang iba-iba talaga yung mga binibigay na kwento ng mga tao. So Miggy and Marvin, ano ang epekto ng disinformation sa mga komunidad? Sige, let's start with Marvin.
Hindi maganda kasi una, personally nakakapikon pag nagpo-post ng fake news lalo mga kaibigan mo na dahil lang sa siguro, paano bang word na to, sinasamba nila yung politician na pinafollow nila. Pero sabi nga, di ba, love your country, not your politician. Nakakapikon lang. Pero ako in-ignore ko na lang kasi kahihiyan naman nila yun. Ikaw nag-post ng fake news, alam naman hindi na totoo, kahihiyan mo na lang yun. Kasi lagi naman katotohanan, yan lumalabas sa end. Di ba? So, ayun, ganun lang ako, pinapabayaan ko lang. Pero nakakainis din. Hindi ko lang pinapatulan. Pero kahihiyan na nila yun. Nakakahiya.
Correct. Salamat, Marvin. Miggy naman.
To be honest, it's very challenging, no? Lalo na ngayong panahon, lahat nasa social media, sobrang bilis mag-spread. Kung ano man news man yan, no? It's kumbaga double effort ngayon, no? You have to teach the truth and you have to correct the false, no? The fake news. So, sa amin, ang hirap kasi we work with the youth. Ngayon, they're mostly on Facebook, they're mostly on TikTok, they're YouTube. Diba? Hindi na sa libro masyado no? Doon sila. So, ang hirap din i-monitor din. Diba? Ang dami, no? They'll reshare something and then parang mapapatingin ka, bakit? No? Ba't niya rin na-share yun? Parang may mali. No? And talaga mahirap siya. Multiplied to all the social networks that we have, all the kids in the Philippines. A very big problem, definitely, this generation.
Ayan, ang bigat, diba? Kasi nilatag natin lahat ng mga challenges. But of course, we need to move forward. So moving forward, no, the question is, where do we go from here? What can people do, especially right after the elections? Kasi kung babalikan natin, Aaron, historically, yung mga NGO, so itong mga non-government organizations to, hindi may disinfo kasi na kumalat dito na parang masama daw yung mga NGOs. Hindi po, kasi kasama yan sa yung civil society po, kailangan nagko-complement yan or tumutulong din yan sa public sector natin. So umangat kasi mga NGOs right after martial law o post-Marcos Sr. Naging thriving space talaga ng volunteerism yung Pilipinas kasi sobrang daming NGOs yung nagsulputan. Pero Para sa inyong tatlo, no, sa ating mga guests ngayon, ano na ba magiging tungkulin ng mga NGOs ngayon na nasa bagong administration tayo? And it's another Marcos. And yun nga, going back to my point, one of the reasons kaya nagsulputan yung NGOs post martial law is nakita nila yung liberty to really do something in society, but now we're back to another Marcos. So where do you see the roles of your NGOs under another Marcos? Dexter?
Ayan, hello. Sorry, yung internet ko unstable. Alam na natin yung internet sa Pilipinas, no? Pero for us, no, as a youth organization, I think it's really about defending democracy, no, through youth empowerment. It's really about maximizing our spaces for democratic participation, no, and making sure na yung leaders na pinoproduce natin, sila yung progressive leaders, no, progressive, radical, and brave leaders, no, courage on nga, di ba, yung sinasabi natin, na kaya nilang lumaban, no, or labanan yung mga bagay na for most people nakakatakot, no. And in the Philippines, politics itself, it's a very frightening field, no, kumbaga, or profession that because of everything that's been happening, no, sa media, sa mga activists, no, sa local government, for example, yung corruption sobrang talamak, di ba? For a lot of young people, napaka-discourage yun, eh, no. And our role really, and for the next 6 years, is to make sure that young people still have that bravery, no, na in the next, for example, in the upcoming SK elections, that's our greatest opportunity to elect progressive leaders na tatao hindi lang sa barangay nila, pero aabot yan sa city level, sa provincial level, no. So kung kaya natin gamitin yung effort natin para magpatakbo ng presidente, ng vice-presidente nung huling election, kayang-kaya natin mag-elect ng mga progresibong leaders sa barangay level hanggang provincial level. So I guess that's a challenge for us, and our organization will do our best, no, to make that happen in the next 6.
I love that answer. Yun nga lang, sure ba tayo sa mga tatakbo? Hindi rin natin alam. So kailangan natin tingnan talaga.
Oo.
Diba?
Or yun nga, magkaroon ng initiative din yung iba na if you really want to be part of the system, di ba? So, as early as now, prepare na, di ba? Kung sino yung mga karapat dapat. How about you, Marvin and Miggy? What do you think? Anong roles ng NGOs ninyo ngayong we're under a new administration?
Hello. Sa amin naman ngayon, gusto lang namin maka-inspire, maging example dito sa community natin na ng mga bagong volunteers na gusto sumali. Sabi nga nung isang member ng group namin, si Onat Granados, isa siyang PWD na sabi niya, share your idea, communicate to people, tapos share your knowledge, share experience, share passion, and share the fun. Kasi minsan, kaya umaalis, hindi mag-volunteer, aalis lang, walang, hindi siguro masaya, kung ano lang. So, yun lang nakukuha ko at simulan natin start small. Kasi pag malaki kagad yung iniisip natin, wala. Tingnan yung yung campaign ni Lenny, organic. They start small. Tapos, sample lang yun. Yun lang focus namin to inspire and be an example sa community namin. Sa yung pagbibisikleta nga at sa pagtatanim, pagkain ng healthy na gulay.
Thanks, Marvin. How about you, Miggy?
So basically, no, 'di ba, yung tungkulin ng NGO? So for us, no, of course, we've been continuing our mission to provide opportunities, no, para sa mga youth in the communities that we serve. So Payatas, Sampaloc, Smoky Mountain. So tuloy lang, no, since 2003 kami, and the challenge is not to lose inspiration, no, to yun nga, to have courage, 'di ba, and be focused and be driven, no, such that definitely, no, regardless of politics, regardless of the government that's sitting, diba, we hope that tayong NGOs and the government, diba, aligned na we serve with pure intentions. Kasi kami yun talaga ang minimum namin sa mga volunteers. Anong requirement, no? Una-una, basta you have pure intentions to help, no, then you can volunteer.
Wow. Thank you, Miggy. Salamat. At ito na po yung bilang panghuling tanong para sa mga viewers natin na gustong makilahok, saan at paano ba dapat magsimula para maging aktibong mamamayan? So anyone can answer first. Oh, wag mag-unahan.
Pwede nyo nang i-segue, i-promote yung mga orgs nyo dito.
Correct. Ako napipili. I
Stop.
choose Dexter. Yeah.
Sorry po, nagkakahiyaan, no? Siguro una, no? Alamin natin, no? Makibahagi tayo sa nangyayari sa lipunan. Kaya natin yon gawin bilang individual. Kaya natin yung simulan sa mga barkada natin, sa mga kaibigan natin, sa pamilya natin, no? The fact na pinag-uusapan natin yung mga nangyayari sa lipunan, it's an important step really to be more active citizens. And pangalawa, I really encourage everyone, especially our young leaders all over the country, to mobilize, to organize, and you can do that by joining many different organizations, yung mga volunteer organizations natin, student organizations ninyo, and through that, use that platform to further promote your advocacy, regardless kung ano yung pinaglalaban mo or kung hindi mo pa alam kung ano yung pinaglalaban mo. Joining organizations will really be that fruitful and meaningful experience. And siguro pangatlo, ito yung hamon natin sa lahat ng kabataan ngayon, ay makibahagi sa pamamahala. Marami tayong spaces for youth participation. If you are part of a youth organization or a student council, pwede kang maging bahagi ng local youth development council nyo, sa city or municipality nyo. Which means, pwede kayong tumulong sa SK, sa mga konsehal nyo para mag-craft ng mga at programa po ng gobyerno para sa kabataan. And if you want to do more than that, really, to build yourself right now to be a progressive leader and run for the upcoming SK elections. Hindi na sapat na parang first step talaga natin yung pag-volunteer kung kabataan ka. But if we really want to make impactful, sustainable change, kailangan may mga tao tayo sa loob nagagalaw para sa atin, magiging kampiyon natin. So please, tumakbo kayo mga kabataan. Alam natin na kaya niyong dali ng pagbabago. So kailangan lang natin mag-courage on para magawa yun.
Thank you, Dexter. And courage on para tumakbo sa December. Kung sa SK man yan o sa barangay. Very important rin kasi yung mga frontliners natin sa gobyerno.
Tama.
Thanks, Dexter. Okay. Sino naman na next? Si Marvin.
Okay, gusto ko lang din mag-invite sa mga dito sa community namin. Kung gusto niyo matutong mag-garden, pwede kayong sumama. Masaya yung grupo. Sa gusto ko rin maningin, pwede ba magbanggit ng pangalan dito?
Sure.
Yung Kagawad Toto Vingno, Kagawad Reggie Baldos, Mayor Art Mercado, nasa na yung bike lane? Salamat.
Yun, bike lane. Sana makita natin. Magiging isa sa metrics of success ng show na to kung magkakaroon ng bike lane. Yes.
Ganda nun.
Babalikan natin yan. Okay, thank you, Marvin. Miggy.
Si Miggy naman.
Pero kopyahin ko lang sila Marvin at Dexter ng onte, So, tama yung sinabi na doon kayo muna siguro sa practical in your areas. Kung sa San Pedro man yan o sa sariling SK area nyo. It's better to start there. Mas practical, tapos find your advocacy, kung saan ang passion mo, kasi mas, mas concrete, kung yun yung tatahakin mo. And then, yun nga, you can find groups, maraming groups dyan. We have hundreds and thousands of NGOs in the Philippines. If magaling kayo mag-research ng mga online shopping, sure na sure kaya nyo mag-research ng mga groups that you can volunteer in. And then, yun nga, you can actually message us. You can message me also, 2KK, we can link you. Of course, we operate in Metro Manila, but definitely we have the network for other organizations as well. So yun, hope to see you volunteer po in the future.
Okay, thank you so much, Miggy. Yan rin sa puntong to na magkakaroon tayo. I-open natin yung floor for question and answer or even comments ng ating mga kasamahan. So please feel free to share your questions here in the chat. We're seeing some comments, siguro I'll try to read this first. Sabi ni Ana Santos here in Zoom. Sabi niya, "Hi, I'm Anna from K4. It's really a challenge ngayon to fight back disinformation. Just like what Maria Reza would say, di ba? We are ridiculed, demonized, pero mas lalong dapat tayong lumaban sa panahon ngayon na fake news ay sobrang malaganap. This dark era should be an inspiration para lalong magpursige sa pag-educate sa iba and pagpapatuloy ng ating advocacy." Yan. Arin ito yung sinabi ni Marvin na find something na magi-inspire sa'yo or magmo-motivate sa'yo to really push forward pa rin.
Correct. Ito naman galing kay Angelo J. Pedro. To put my hope into action, I signed up for 2KK to extend my intention to volunteer. Oh, may action plan na.
Mhm.
Meron na. Good job, Angelo.
Okay. Sabi naman ni Ian Barcelos. Okay, mula sa Classic Barkadahan. Sabi niya, it's still possible to build our nation back with the purpose of bringing back justice and reconciliation and through a mass mobilization program, just like in Rwanda. One day a month, if somebody don't participate in this project, they will get fined or go to jail. Ay, wow.
Wow. Wow.
Extreme pala doon.
Oo. Medyo katakot.
Oo.
Ito naman galing kay Jing Henderson. We need to be supporting upfront our good political leaders. Yes, para hindi sila ubulusok sa kumunoy na ng pangit na politika at pamamahala. Correct, di ba? Isulong natin ang accountability sa pamahalaan. Correct. And whether or not natalo yung kandidato natin, yan pa rin naman yung gagawin natin, di ba? So patuloy lang, tuloy-tuloy lang siya.
Okay, ayan. So thank you so much no sa lahat ng mga questions na pinapadala ninyo sa amin. And of course, kung gusto niyo rin kausapin directly yung mga speakers natin, if okay lang sa inyo, just reach out to them on their social media para syempre magtuloy-tuloy yung impact natin sa pinag-uusapan natin ngayon. Okay?
Yes. So magpapasalamat po kami sa mga speakers namin today. Maraming salamat sa inyong mga tanong at maraming salamat sa inyong lahat for your time. Muli, nakasama natin sila Dexter Yang, Executive Director of Good Gov PH, Miggy Lapid, Executive Director of 2KK, Tulong sa Kapwa Kapatid Foundation, and of course, Marvin Lopez, President of Pasita Organic Garden.
All right. Thank you so much, Dexter, Miggy, and Marvin. Maraming
Thank you din.
po
Maraming
dito.
salamat. Thank you.
Maraming
Mag-ingat
salamat.
tayong
Maraming
lahat.
salamat.
Okay, and Aaron, so narinig na natin ang mga insights ng mga speakers natin. Now we want to hear from you, to our viewers out there. Para sa inyo, paano natin maipagpapatuloy ang nasimulang advokasya noong panahon ng eleksyon? I-share nyo lang po dito sa chat at i-feature po namin yan. In the meantime, Aaron, let's read some of the answers from our social media users. Okay. So yan, unang-una, ang sabi ni Roselito Magpantay, bilang taxpayer, kung maganda ang plano, sundin at makiisa. Kung walang plano at palpak palagi, abay, batikusin, ikis-kis ang likod para sumipag. Yan ang ginagawa sa salagubang na tamad.
Gusto ko
Okay.
yon.
Diba?
Ito, galing kay Bernadette. Patuloy ang pagtanggol sa tunay na kasaysayan ng bansa, maging mapanuri sa katotohanan, kaakibat ng tamang pagsasaliksik at hindi sa sabi-sabi lamang.
Yan.
Hindi sa chismis lang.
Oo.
Diba? Huwag
Diba?
tayo
Kasi kung
mag-
katotohanan, kung part na yun ng history, meron tayong mga eksperto diba? Talagang
correct.
masusi nilang inaaral yan, sinasaliksik nila. So ayan na. Ayan, may sunod pa si Alexandra Mangasar. I believe po by continuing to fight for the truth.
Yes.
Yan, maraming salamat Alexandra. So segue ko na dito yung Facts First PH na isa to sa mga advocacies campaigns na kasama, nililid ng Rappler. So maging part po kayo niyan. Please use #FactsFirstPH.
Yan, ang ganda nun. And from Rico Santos, sabi niya, maging active sa social media. Correct, spread awareness. Baka yung mga bubbles natin, kailangan nila malaman ang katotohanan, di ba? Baka mamaya may kilala tayo. So maging active tayo sa social media. Gamitin natin yung boses natin.
Oo. And of course, important din na i-translate natin yung mga ginagawa natin social media to offline, di ba? On-site mismo. Kasi meron pa rin tayong mga kababayan, marami pa rin sila na wala pa rin access sa social media. So it's very important na we go beyond social media din.
Yes, exactly. Ayan.
Okay, ayan. So thank you so much, no? Continuously just give your comments. Just use #CourageOn either on Twitter or Instagram, TikTok or Facebook. Sana Arin, makagawa ka rin ng TikTok mo about this question.
Magko-collab ba tayo dito? Jules, ganun
Alam
ba
mo
yun?
ba?
Ganun
meron akong aaminin. Nalilito ako gumamit ng TikTok. Pero aralin ko for you, Arin, para makapag-collab tayo.
Teka lang, Jules. Ilang taon ka na? Nakakahiya
31
ka.
pa lang
Matanda
ako.
na ako, nasa TikTok ako. Ilan taon ka na?
31.
Oh, mas matanda ako sa'yo. Ayan,
Sige,
kaya
sige.
mo yan.
Aralin ko later.
Ah,
Maglabas ka na ng question tapos duet ba ang tawag doon?
yeah,
Ayun,
duet.
ido-duet ko siya.
Duet. Kung Instagram, remix.
Remix, ayun. Ito, meron pang isa na question. Si Carl Dave Santos. That we safeguard our democracy through continuous support for press freedom. Nako, gusto natin yan. As a communication student, kailangan ipaglaban ang malayang pamamahayag.
Correct.
Okay, yan yung last natin. So thank you so much once again.
Yes.
Tuloy-tuloy lang po tayo sa pag-share ng inyong mga questions.
Correct.
Ay, na yung answers pala.
Yung answers, oo. Hindi nga siya nagtanong, sabi ko, ano yung sasagutin natin dyan? At alam
Okay.
natin, hindi dapat nagtatapos ang ating pagiging aktibong mamamayan sa eleksyon. May binigay na rin mga idea ang mga speakers natin kung paano natin ito magagawa. Pero where do you think, Jules? Where do you think we can start?
Yun na nga ang golden question natin. Nakawag mo na golden, puro golden. Nakikita na kasi natin sa mga komunidad natin na ang daming gustong tumulong at naghahanap lang ng mga avenues kung saan sila pwede magbigay ng tulong. 'Di ba? And there are so many ways to do this, from writing to volunteering. May mga espasyo ang Move PH para sa iba't ibang forms of volunteerism. So here to share more about civic engagement is Samantha Bagayas from Move PH. Sam, good afternoon and go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk more about how civic engagement can actually help communities. So actually for Move PH, most of our campaigns are actually online, but I'm going to share more about how Move PH was able to translate online actions to real life impact. So I'm also going to share about how you can start your journey of being an active citizen. But before I start, I'm just going to share more about the reality of us being in the digital age. So in the digital age, there are now more citizens who can help in amplifying issues in communities. People can share updates on what's going on in their community and be connected with more people thanks to social media. So that's one of the good things that we can expect in the digital age. But also at the same time, in the age of social media, everyone is a publisher. So it's now everyone's responsibility, not just journalists, to ensure that the information we're sharing on social media is accurate and factual. So before sa social media, parang meron pa mga journalists who can ensure that the information that we're accessing on whether that's in books and newspapers, already verified and vetted. Basically, may gatekeeping nangyayari. But for now, everyone can now publish. So there's a possibility that the information that you're accessing on social media can be wrong, can be false, is not properly researched. It's now everyone's responsibility. So actually, if you think about it, social media actually is parang this access to social media has become a double-edged sword. So while it has made it easy for us to connect with more people, it has also made people more vulnerable to disinformation and online manipulation. So this actually has real life impact. What you do online has real life impact, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. We can already see that, for example, what the information that we're reading online can impact our real life decisions. May that be, for example, in the elections. Like if you, for example, see this candidate espousing this kind of parang information, but then you see that it's not really coupled with or backed by facts, then that can possibly impact the choices that you make in the elections. Similar to, for example, the pandemic, there were actually a lot of false information that were going around about the pandemic and about the COVID-19 that actually impacted people's decision to, for example, get vaccines or get treated. So it actually has real life impact. But so what happens on social media doesn't just stay on social media, but we can do something about this. Actually, while that's happening, we can also utilize social media to make sure that we can amplify facts, that we can amplify our advocacies. We can actually utilize this to make sure that we're actually making our digital space a better world and even our real life world to be much better than it is. So we've already seen that there's more that we can do. We saw that in the elections. We saw that in the pandemic. We saw, for example, during disasters, there are people who would, for example, stage donation drives or relief drives in order to help their communities. In the pandemic, we saw that there were community pantries to help people who are struggling with, for example, food security. There are people who are banding together to make things happen. In the elections, we kept seeing a lot of people who are actually leading campaigns for their candidates. So, diba, before it was just candidates who were pushing their agenda, but right now it's actually people who are actually advocating for their candidate and pushing about how this candidate espouses this kind of ideals. So, diba, and even during disasters, we've seen that in so many instances, we've seen this happen both online and offline. So it's actually parang there are many ways that you can actually be an active citizen, whether that may be online or it can be offline. So just like what you said, there are many ways that you can volunteer. Doesn't necessarily have to always be on the ground. You can also start by starting with your own communities. You can start online. You can start with your own like social media space. That's fine. Everyone has a role to play in addressing the issues that concern our community. And I'm going to share some of the ways that you can do that and also some examples so you can see that this is actually something that's been happening and also something that an individual like you can also do. So here, where do you start? You can actually start in these three ways. So actually, these are all very simple lang. It's not very complicated. So it really depends on parang what you want to do. So first off, you can try to amplify and write. You can help amplify facts and share updates about your community. So it doesn't always have to always write a story. You can start by sharing about making commentary, making an opinion piece. Maybe you can even start by always verifying information before sharing it. While that seems like such a small thing in the grand scheme of things, that's actually a very helpful effort because with social media right now, just helping amplify that, amplifying facts is also a way to make people get more access to that because then they get to see the content that you're sharing and they get influenced by that. So another thing that you can do is you can also fact check. You can spot and fact check false claims on social media. So the very basic thing is you can also send or report these false claims, or you can also fact check them yourself by, of course, researching and checking various sources. Or another thing you can do is you can also join and lead campaigns or events. So you just have to figure out your advocacy. Like for example, in your speakers, maybe your advocacy is food security. Maybe you want to start a community garden in your area. You just need to figure out how you can contribute best to your community. It really depends on what you want to do, what your skills are, and what you're passionate about. You just need to learn more about local and national issues. So there are these three ways that I'm sharing right now. So where exactly can we start? If I want to amplify and write, how does that manifest in real life? So I'm going to share some examples. So if you're going to amplify and write, actually truth tellers are needed now more than ever. So you can help amplify facts and share updates about your community. So we always say that you have to start with their own spheres of influence. So what do you mean by that? Even just, for example, talking to your family about fact-checking, about the importance of defending press freedom, mga stuff like that, already makes a big impact. So starting out small can already make a big impact. So here are some things you can do from now on. You can always verify information before sharing it. So it helps in helping in sharing facts can make them spread faster and further than lies on social media. You can also share verified updates on what's going on in your communities and tag MovePH and Rapper.com. So for example, parang may this can be something very easy. Like for example, if may baha sa area mo, you can take a photo and then you can report that there's a flood here in, for example, Cagayan de Oro City. And then you can tag us. And that way we also know that that's something that's happening in your area. So there are many ways that you can do that. And I'm going to share some of the ways that are movers. So these are volunteers and also citizen journalists that are part of MovePH that follow these small steps to contribute to their communities. Kasi baka iisipin nyo, baka wala akong parang, I can't do that kasi I'm not a journalist. I'm not like this. I'm not like that. I don't know how to write. Ganyan. You can definitely do any of these things based on like your skills. You can just start out small. That's fine. So I'm going to share some of the things that our movers did. So our movers actually tried to bring issues to the mainstream. So in the elections, we actually trained several citizen journalists and campus journalists to learn more about how they can report issues in their communities. So our movers sought to shine a spotlight on issues faced by their communities and give a platform for local voices. So this actually helped bring the experiences faced by those in the provinces to the mainstream. Because actually one of the concerns that our movers mentioned was how in their community, and for example, in Antique, there are a lot of journalists that are actually going there to capture the issues in their community. And they don't usually have a platform for them to air out like the concerns that they have in their community. But with the help of Move PH, with the help of the trainings, with the help of the platform, they were able to give a space for issues in Antique. So actually in this picture, you can actually see here that our lead mover, Andrea Pefianco, is actually interviewing a local Antiqueño fisher folk to ask about why he's voting in the elections now. So right now, he mentioned here that he's voting for a president who prioritizes free healthcare. So stuff like that, even just amplifying the experiences of the people in your community can already be a big thing, because now more people can see kung ano yung mga different sentiments that are that your community may have. So another way that our movers also work here is during the elections. You can actually I see here, Bulacan mover Jesril Ines. So what he did was he was actually testing his camera here as he prepares for a live report on election night in San Jose del Monte City. So this is him following mobile journalism. So it's just using his phone lang. So it's not like a camera crew. He was actually reporting all day long sa Twitter, tweeting updates in his community about what's going on in that polling site. So stuff like that, diba? Parang short updates lang, and then later on he wanted to present a live report about what was going on in his area. So we also have here Zamboanga del Sur lead mover Stephen Essex. So he actually did a live stand-upper, so detailing his coverage in a local precinct on election day. And he was actually one of the movers that we interviewed live for election day. So stuff like that, you can actually, that's how far you can go if you start reporting updates in your community. But also there are many ways that you can contribute. It doesn't necessarily have to be about journalism. You can actually, for example, publish, you can actually write opinion pieces, or you can also just share your experiences. So for example, for these people, they were part of our mentorship program. And then basically what they did was they participated in our mentorship program to learn more about fact checking. And then later on, they actually shared their experience from that program. So actually here, you can see here, Owen Toledo, he actually shared how the pandemic turned him into a fact checker. We also have here Miguel Durian talking about how to be a fact check champion. And then we also have here another mover who actually shared some tips on how children and how to teach children how to fact check. So para mga ganyan, you can always just go back to your own experiences. It doesn't always have to be so complicated. You can just share what you're experiencing, and that could really be a good thing. So stuff like that. So I'm going to share also one story that our mover did. So we have one mover here who actually made a feature on the voters in a remote Antique village who struggle to know national candidates because malayo nga yung area, and also my problems with social media. I mean, with access to social media. So they don't always have information about the national candidates. So she actually wrote this story on May 2, 2022. And then actually, parang she told us later on that after her story was published, there were some supporters of national candidates actually made an effort to visit the community. So she says here that she was very satisfied kasi may group na pumunta doon para mag-print ng brochures, and then who actually featured other candidates, not just yung bet nila na candidate, but also other candidates. So there was actually real life impact just from one story. So just imagine, one story has the possibility to bring change. So mga stuff like that. That's why it's very important for us to always go back to our experiences, to what we know, and also amplify truth. So another thing that you can do is you can also try to fact check claims on social media. So like during crises such as the pandemic, unverified reports and misleading posts online can spread as fast and as wide as the virus itself. So we've actually been conducting fact-checking webinars to teach people how to fact-check and learn more about fact-checking. So we've done over 50 webinars and trained over 15,000 participants. So we've also done at least 500 fact checks since 2018. So you can actually be part of this webinar and learn more about fact checking. It's always important to learn more about something before you try to exercise it. That way you know that you're doing it right. So what are the other ways that you can do to fight disinformation? You can actually report. You can send a screenshot and link to the W's claim to factcheck@rappler.com. So if ever you find any false information, some posts that you think are wrong, you can always just send that to this link. And also, you can also, if you're part of an organization, you can also be part of the Facts for Speech initiative. That's what Jules was talking about earlier, to collaborate with other advocates of facts and truth. So aside from that, you can also connect. You can join the Facts for Speech Facebook group and be an active member to get more sources of facts and truth. And you can also co-host a fact-checking webinar. If you'd like to bring the fact-checking webinar in your community, you can send an email to move.ph@rapper.com. So these are just like 4 simple ways that you can do to fight disinformation. There are many things, but these are some basics lang. Also, you can also fact check and be creative about amplifying truth. So I'm going to share some things that our movers did. So throughout the elections, movers produced creative executions such as video series and comics out of fact checks to help promote the facts. So actually, alam niyo naman na ang daming tao na sa TikTok ngayon. So it's important we also try to bring facts there in that platform kasi ang dami din mga false information there. So we have to counter that by also bringing facts there. So you can see here some movers. They're very young, ha? They're not parang adults pa talaga, like, youth talaga. So they actually made this series, the Marriott Check series. So they published this on TikTok, on Twitter and Facebook, and also this is amplified by Rappler. Basically what they did was they put it in video form, yung mga fact checks, kasi alam naman natin baka lahat ng tao, may ibang tao na ayaw magbasa, so baka mas prefer nila yung video, which is okay. So then they made several video series to capture that. So other people naman, some movers actually did comics. So you can see here na promote siya ng fact-checking and the power of fact-checking. So even something as simple as that, if you're into writing, if you're into drawing, if you're into comics, if you're into video, you can actually utilize those skills to do something by, for example, doing something like this, making a video series to promote facts. And of course, these fact checks, these videos are grounded on fact checks published by Rappler. So you can also make sure that the information that you're saying is also correct and with good sources. So yun, basically another example that we're sharing of how we can actually use facts and how that translates to real life impact. So what we did here is actually when there was Typhoon Ulysses, what happened was we actually helped in amplifying organizing verified calls for help on social media during disasters. So what happened here was, alam naman natin pag disasters, parang marami nagpapanic. So sometimes we just need to make an effort to verify the calls for help, the information you're seeing on social media. So what we did was we actually got volunteers who are interested in verifying these calls by reaching out to them and then amplifying their details. That way, parang at least the information that we're seeing on social media, at least on the part of Move page, you know that these calls are verified and are calls that you can act on. So during Typhoon Ulysses alone, we got more than 1,000 volunteers who sought to help out in Agos operations, as many turned to social media for rescue. So we were able to monitor, with the help of volunteers, more than 1,600 reports for rescue and relief from Marikina, Rizal, Bulacan, Cagayan, and other parts of Luzon at the height of Ulysses. So actually, quite as simple as that, volunteering and doing something that reaching out to those in need and then verifying, that's already a big help. You can see here some responses actually. Some tweets made by some volunteers here. See, good evening. I'm an Agos volunteer. If you know anyone who still needs to be rescued, please reply or DM me so I can ask the details and source it to Move PH. Diba? So, diba, that's all grounded on facts. Even if it's disasters, facts are still very important. Hindi lang siya parang focus lang sa politics or pandemic. It can even happen even in disasters, diba? So So stuff like that. You can also join and lead campaigns. Like focus on what are you passionate about. Figure out your advocacy. You can always, if you don't know what your advocacy is, you can always go back to your local and national issues. Like if you see something that bothers you and you want to act on it, you can always focus on that. You can also try out new things to know how you can contribute best to your community. So I'm going to share some examples. We actually have these movers also who actually made a person-to-person workshop to help combat disinformation. Kasi 'di ba, parang also when it comes to fighting this info, we know the fact-checking, sharing verified info, but then there are many ways that you can do that. Actually, you can also talk to people in your circle about fact-checking and making sure na parang, alam mo naman, no, na parang hindi dapat tayo mag-share ng mga false information. So kahit yung person-to-person na parang pag-discuss, alam naman natin na that might need some time to get used to kasi a lot of people when you say for example na alam mo ba na parang false yung shinare mo baka ma-offend sila, di ba, na parang hindi naman. Pero so usually there needs to be some sensitivity when it comes to how we talk to people about fact checking. So that's what these movers did, and if you can believe it, they actually were about 3 people lang. I think 3 people sila, but they actually made this workshop work. So you don't need to always we don't always need, like, for example, a big group. It doesn't always mean na parang, I can't make a campaign kasi parang 3 lang kami, 2 lang kami. That's already a good starting point. If you want to do something, things will happen. And that's what they did here. So they made a person-to-person workshop to help combat disinformation. So this is also something you can explore as you think of campaigns and efforts you can lead in your community. So starting conversations is already a good first step. And also, if you don't know where to start, you can always start with leading events or campaigns in your communities. So actually, graduates of Raptor's mentorship program also led events promoting fact-checking in their communities. So for example, you can see here is a checkmate that they were actually, this is a mentorship graduate sa Rappler who made a campaign. This is the event that came out of that campaign on how to debunk like mga COVID-19 claims, etc. And then there's also Maging Fact Check Champion. This was organized by, I hope, organized by LB Times. So para mga ganyan, you can actually try to bring these events to your communities as well. So that's also why I mentioned that if you're interested to co-host a fact-checking webinar, we can also discuss how to partner, or you can also try to bring it in your communities. It's very important that we also bring the fight against disinformation on the ground kasi sila din yung very vulnerable. Hindi lang tayo puro online. So yun, we also did this, this is another example of a campaign that we did. This is actually pretty simple lang. If you remember, during the start of the pandemic, there were a lot of students who were in need of gadgets because we transitioned that to distance learning, right? The distance learning setup. So a lot of people didn't have the gadgets to adjust to that kind of transition. So they were actually crowdsourcing for help on social media. And then usually people, for example, may be worry na parang baka scam, baka ganyan. So what we did was we actually helped amplify the stories of students in need using our platforms. But of course, before we amplify their stories, we actually had a verification process to ensure na that's the situation that they're in talaga, that they're not going to take advantage, for example, of this opportunity. It's because they are in need talaga. So thanks to movers who actually volunteered to help verify these stories and help crowdsource, as well as partners and donors who were able to raise at least 1 million pesos and help bring gadgets to more than 70 students by October 2020. So imagine just using the hashtag and then like verifying that and then promoting that actually helped. So that's also one of the things that we did. Focus on facts din siya. So hindi lang siya, you might think that when we talk about fact checking and facts, parang focus siya sa ganyan, but it actually seeps into everything that we do. And I think it also applies for everyone here. Now, whatever we do, we always need to ground it on facts. And then we're on our last slide. So together, let's move the Philippines forward. So where to start? Actually, everyone can make a difference. It's all just a matter of figuring out what you want to do. and what you're passionate about and what your skills are and what you're interested in doing. So if you're interested to be a mover or to collaborate with Move PH, just email move.ph@rappler.com. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sam. Ayan, 'di ba? Arin, sobrang daming pinagkakaabalahan ng Move PH. So if you want to be a mover or a partner of Move PH, mag-email lang kayo sa move.ph@rappler.com.
My
Okay.
gosh.
Ayan, so very meaningful, Arin, yung naging conversation natin, ang muling pagbabalik ng Courage On. So very quick lang, ano yung main takeaways mo, Arin, dito sa ating discussion?
Ay nako, what I took away
Improv
was,
ba to?
gusto mo? Naging character. Hindi. Yung main takeaway ko is that no matter who you are, meron kayong magagawa. There is something for everyone to be able to do. Kung hindi ka magaling sa math, okay lang. Pwede kang pumunta dito sa arts. Kung hindi ka malakas sa data processing, edi mag-on grounds, volunteer ka. So kahit ano, play to your strengths bilang citizen, play to your strengths and make sure that you are still fighting for the cause which is your country, 'di ba? Kahit anong pwede mong gawin, may writing, 'di ba? Sabi nila may arts, kahit ano, planting, lahat, lahat.
Totoo.
Yun yung
Maganda yun,
takeaway ko. Ikaw
Arin.
naman.
Maganda yung sinabi mo na focus on your strengths and maybe don't dwell on your weaknesses. Kasi minsan, di ba, napufrustrate tayo, weakness ko to, paano ko ba pwedeng ma-overcome yung weaknesses ko? Pwede rin naman yun. Pero at the same time, may strengths ka baka hindi mo lang siya na-discover or na-unleash. Anyway, yung takeaway ko, may nakita akong magandang quote dito mula kay Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte. Sabi niya, democracy means ordinary citizens have tremendous power over the government, not only during elections, but over any action that affects their lives. The government hears and values the people's voice. Communities are stakeholders and not passive subjects. O, di ba? Ang ganda nun na kapag pinag-uusapan kasi natin yung governance, kasama tayo dyan. Hindi lang gobyerno yan. Pati tayong civil society, tayong mamamayan, may ambag tayo dyan. So, let's continue engaging with those in power. Actually, we are in power, those who are elected, di ba? Let's continue engaging with them. Kung niligawan tayo ng malala nung kampanya, dapat tuloy-tuloy tayong nililigawan habang nakaupo sila. Di ba? Kasi tayo ngayon naghalal sa kanila. So, ayun. So, thank you so much, Irene, first and foremost, for being with us this afternoon. And dito na nga nagtatapos yung ating community show. Isa po ito sa mga efforts ng #CourageOn and #PHVote Coalitions. And this is co-presented by UNESCO. UNESCO, thank you so much. And if you're interested to be part of our ongoing coalitions like Courage On and PHVote Coalitions, again, please email at move.ph@rappler.com.
Yes, and this Courage On episode is also co-hosted by Caritas Philippines, Dakila, Faith Initiative, and Institute for Solidarity of Asia. Ayan, naging makabuluhan muli ang ating episode na ito. I'm so happy na naging parte ako nito. At dito na po magtatapos ang episode 11. Ako muli si Erin Cristobal. Sana nag-enjoy kayo.
Nag-enjoy kami, Arin, at we will look forward sa iyong TikTok entry patungkol dito. Okay, yan po. Kumibo at magpakibo, kumilos at magpakilos. Let's all speak truth to power. Maraming salamat. Ako po si Jules Giyang. Tumindig, makialam, kumilos. Courage on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Arin.